wonderful. My Zen Cowboy.
Zen Cowboy. No one's ever called me that before, but I like the ring to it.
Oh, I think it's gonna be catchy.
Yeah.
I uh I found you with that YouTube clip I've referred to, the one on the law of transmutation of energy. And
Okay.
so for me, as the daughter of a cowboy and from a family line whose history is just like the roughest, toughest little cowboy in the West kind of descendants, to see a cowboy going, well, in the law of transmutation of energy, he was like, wait a minute.
Well, I created those videos for myself. I want to learn it deeper and try to remember it because it seems like I already knew it. I just didn't know how to remember it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
practicing it, immersing in it helps me remember it.
It's interesting that you do it by video. I do it by writing.
Yeah.
I imagine you probably write it out first as well. Do you? What's your
I
process?
do both. Yeah, I do both. I wake up every morning and write
Mhm.
every morning. I did this morning. And sometimes in the evening I'll write, but I wrote a book and I didn't know that writing is like an expansion of your consciousness. It's like it helps ascension in consciousness. So writing, kind of separates us from the animals in that regard. When we can write, like a stream of consciousness just flows through me onto paper. So
Mhm.
it's like, man, where did this come from? But
Yeah.
I need to learn it. So it's interesting how writing and video, this, I guess it's a second society, they call it, where we can share, expressions and learn and grow. So, yeah, the video piece, I'll watch myself in video and man, I sometimes just bust out laughing like, oh my gosh, who is this guy?
Hmm. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, it's fun. The video stuff I've found a steeper learning curve than I realized. So I feel like I'm late, kind of like I feel like I'm behind where I've wanted to be. But the some of the places I'm finding I really hit my stride are with, I call them voice bombs, or coaching and stuff through WhatsApp. And I can, while I'm doing something that keeps my body occupied, like mucking a stall or driving a car, I can leave someone thoughts that stream from somewhere, kind of like when I write, on how to solve a problem that they've called me about or something. And I'm just experimenting with that. And that's been really an interesting way to learn, because that's usually, as I'm talking it through, it's often in line with something I'm learning and practicing, right? Being able to verbalize it for someone in a way that they can feel um, is is really rewarding. I never thought I'd be doing this, Justin. I had no idea.
Yeah, me either. Me either. There's a sense of things. You get a sense of things. You can kind of sense it. But until you immerse in it, and understand it, and they merge, it's so much different. Because like I sense a lot of things, and I can get a sense about flying an airplane. But until you do it, you don't really understand it.
Mhm.
So that writing and video, writing, not riding a horse, that we'll get to there. But the writing piece and the video piece, they're just kind of they're supportive, but they're a fractal or an aspect or a sense of what we're actually going to. So it's kind of like people have to experience it to really understand it. And that's tough to display on a video,
Mhm.
tough to display in a book, because it's like if I try to explain what chocolate ice cream tastes like to you, and you've never even had sugar, you've never had chocolate, you've never had anything cold, and I'm going to explain all those things to you, but you'll get a sense of it in some regard, depending on your experiences, but you will never understand it until you do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, video and books and all that, they're great and they're supportive, but they're like little aspects of the essence. what we're trying to share with people.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm just so glad that you're here to share with us today. And I'm going to take a moment to welcome people as they come in. Justin and I had an unfair head start. Hi, Jessica. Jessica has two horses here now. A young horse from a cowboy line you might know. And he's huge and been raised pretty much entirely with an understanding of the pressure and release world, but as much as possible, a positive reinforcement model. And she bought a little mini from a friend of mine to keep him company, stabilize the herd, and they're in my backyard. And Liz, I don't know, and Linda, welcome you guys. Thank you so much for joining Justin and I today. And I was talking a little bit about how I came to find him, and I'm going to start now. Others might join in a little bit later, but I'm going to start the official part that we'll use for our podcast recording on this November 11th, uh, on Remembrance Day. This is, I think, the perfect guest and the way for horse people to honor Remembrance Day because our guest, Justin Dunn, serves primarily, if not exclusively, veterans and people who have served their country with Mustangs, with American Mustangs. So, welcome, Justin, and thank you for being here on such short notice on Remembrance Day. I think this is fantastic.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward
Super.
to this too.
Super. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a background on how I found Justin Dunn. Um, and I may or may not do a successful screen share, which won't translate well to podcasting anyway. But there is, so I'll just describe it. There is a video on YouTube. He has a fantastic YouTube channel where, as he was just sharing with me, he pours out the thoughts that he has been streaming as he writes in the morning. So Justin Dunn is a horseman. He serves first responders and other people in a multitude of ways that may include trauma recovery and other things. And he serves horse people and he writes every morning. He has a book called, can you tell us the name of your book, Justin?
Well, it's called A Horse to Guide Me.
A Horse to Guide Me. And there'll be links at the bottom of this page on the podcast today to that book. And he is, I came across him accidentally scrolling through, well, I guess it's not accidentally. The algorithms are having us come together because we're exploring the same things. And so there was this cowboy, and I know cowboys, right? Because my daddy's a cowboy. He's 85 now, but he's a cowboy. He comes from a famous cowboy, I think, Tuffy Lockton, a tiny, tiny, stringy little man who had a backstory that would break your heart 7 times before Sunday. And Tuffy Lockton was known to be um, of the toughest survivors of 3 abandoned boys in the hills in 1917 in Alberta. And he was a cowboy. My peoples are cowboys. And they have ranches and such. And they raise cattle and they have horses and they're beautiful people, but I don't think they understand sort of where I've been going lately. So lately, I've been talking about polyvagal theory and how that trickles down into some training things we've been doing for horses and calling natural. Um, and it's shutting down their nervous systems. And I've got all this learning that I would have previously called woo-woo and dismissed for being some hippie's crazy dreams. And I started learning the science behind it. So going down this rabbit hole makes me, I think, the black sheep. I never expected to be the black sheep in my family. I mean, I was taught by cavalry officers in the toughest equestrian Olympic sport there is, 3-day eventing. How that was taught by cavalry officers who had served their nations was like getting ready for war. And I'm all namby-pamby now and giving them choices, Justin. It's not, it's not been as easy as I thought it might be to become what I would have previously described as a hippie.
Yeah.
And so my journey has been documented a bit, and it was really shaped during a time in my life where everything hit me, cancer and divorce and bankruptcy. Life went sideways, and I met someone who taught the science behind all this hippy dippy bullshit about connection with horses. And I had to kind of apologize in my head to a lot of people whose work I had dismissed. And so then I find Justin Dunn in his barn, dressed all cowboy, standing with a horse surrounded by a Western saddle, talking about the transmutation of energy and the laws of our universe. And I went, that's my man. I can introduce you to my dad and I think have a conversation today that will um, maybe carry more weight. I'm carrying more and more weight in his eyes with this namby-pamby um, polyvagal theory and breath work and mindfulness stuff that I'm doing with horses and teaching people heart math. But boy, to hear it from a cowboy's lips that any of these things matter and are important, I think will be really powerful. Not that you're here just to solve my but my dad sort of have this back and dad and I have this back and forth stuff on our in our teachings. He's a veterinarian and science versus woo, you know, and I think this might kind of help bridge the gap a little bit. So I want to, with all that, hand the floor over to you and ask you what your journey has been like from cowboy and in the cowboy world to be this Zen. Did you come out of the womb this Zen or
Well, man, I wish there was one quick, easy answer for this, but I'll just give it a shot. Uh, my mother's very loving, very nurturing. She has intuition, and she has a dog rescue in South Texas. And I just that nurturing from her just kind of led me down a path of looking at things from a different perspective. And that's kind of the way I look at life. You know, there's 360 degrees to look at one thing, you know, in perspective. And just to clarify, I think we're all connected. We're all one in the universe. You know, we're all singing the same song, universe, one song. But there's different perspectives of whatever it is that we're looking at. And they're all important. So in laws of polarity, you'll have contrasts. So you say woo woo, and then someone will say that's, you know, whatever. They're all the same. It's just different degrees. So nature has polarities, but they're different degrees, you know, hot and cold. How do you separate hot from cold? Where does it stop and start? They're the same thing. They're just different degrees. So in the horse world, we're all connected. We're all one. There's all different aspects or fractals, not necessarily facts, but fractals of information that come in. And they're all worthy of looking at. So when I got exposed to horse training as real young, I saw people doing things that were pretty harsh in my viewpoint. You know, I got two little pupils that I'm looking at the world through. You know, two little quarter-inch windows that I can see everything, and I tried to watch how things work so you can learn. But what I would see is somebody doing something in from their perspective, but I would look at it from my perspective and not judge them and be more into loving. Like, well, I love everything. I think planet Earth is the best place, man. I'm so happy to be here. And I'd see people doing things that I would consider wrong or negative. And then I would just try to take that and go its opposite. So as an example, I had a little Shetland pony growing up and I loved him so much, but I didn't know how to train. So I'd watch my granddaddy try to train him, but he wasn't a trainer. He would just try to muscle him and manhandle him. And I didn't really appreciate that. And I'm only 5, 6, 7 years old. I can't do what he's doing anyway. So I'd try the opposite. You know, yet rather than yelling, I'd whisper. Rather than talking real loud, I'd sing to him. And then I just started feeling what that transformation would do, transition from where you are to where you want to be by doing different things of what you see. So it's kind of a test. You test things. But I grew up around horse trainers, they'll call them in South Texas, and they're everywhere. Everybody's a horse trainer. But where intellect ends, the violence would begin. So I would always just go opposite of what they would show. So when they get real harsh, I'd get real soft. And I just catapulted ahead of everybody. But once you do that, I don't know, want this to sound like it's ego or anything, because maybe it is, but it's you're out there by yourself. You're trying things that the crowd's not doing. But the proof is in the pudding, they say. And I could do things with horses that other people could not. And they were trying to force submission. And I was trying to create compliance, willingness in, through presenting something that I would expect if I traded places with the horse. So that's what we got to do. We got to kind of look at it from a mental perspective. Like, I would rather love than be right. And I always win when I do that. I would get down with a horse that people didn't understand because they're trying to force submission through pain or fear. Well, in the transmutation of that same energy, because like I said, in nature, everything's the same, it's different degrees. I would take that energy and change it into love and kindness and practice it. And I would draw the horse to me rather than me go try to catch him. And then people started, realizing, wow, there's something to this. And they would change their perspective. And then they could change their perception. Because that's how I help people. I don't heal people. I just vibrate at a certain frequency, and they just bring their self up to that same frequency, and then they get a different perspective. They can change their perception, and then they can start attracting to them what it is they want the most. And horses are like microcosm practice of showing that. So whenever a person comes in and they're vibrating at a low frequency, they're in a dark spot, we'll call it. Well, we just got to pour some light into that and bring them up, and the horses respond to it immediately. It's not necessarily seen with the eye through those quarter-inch little windows that we look through. It's felt in electromagnetic energy. It's felt in the heart. It's felt in the body. Reflection of the body is what's going on in the mind. So when a horse will take a deep breath and relax his muscles and drop his head a little bit, when a person consciously, the masculine energy consciously makes a change and presents to the horse, they get instant feedback to see it. And then they can grow and develop and nurture themselves into healing. I don't do it. They do it themselves, just so that's clear. I've watched this through thousands of interactions. And the woo-woo thing, let's just call it that. I don't mind it. I think it's cool. Woo-woo's cool. Let's start changing perspectives so people can change their perception. And maybe they need to go into some woo-woo, because the laws of the universe are here, whether we know them or not. Them horses know them. They abide in them. And when we align with those, they draw to us because they recognize those frequencies. They recognize that vibration, and they're comfortable there. When we change, then they're supposed to change too. And laws of nature apply. So cause and effect. It's just like they read intention. Wild horse, wild animal, we'll say mountain lion. When those frequencies change, the horse knows, well, he's either passing through or he's coming to chase me and eat. So I specialize in wild Mustang horses. They're very attuned with their surroundings. They're acutely aware of their surroundings. They think, analyze everything in life and death. They think to survive. So in understanding where they're coming from, trading places with them and looking through their eyes, I can actually shapeshift and become the horse in a sense. And then we can vibrate at the same frequencies, or I can change and present and watch feedback, make changes, present, watch feedback, and get into a feedback loop on a microcosm, which actually pours out into the macro. We could go into that too. I don't want to get too sideways rambling on different things, because this is deep, and I'll go as deep as you want to go. But let's just call it what it is. It's real. It's mental. It's physical, and it's spiritual. And those three planes of existence, horsemanship will show us, guide us through those, so we can be better away from the horse and understanding.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
Yeah.
and can you tell me a little bit about, well, I have some questions, but I also wonder, because I can be super tangential, if coming into this, um, we said, now, Justin, here, we only have so many minutes today to get something that's really burning in your heart out to the world that maybe humans don't understand about horses, which usually translates to themselves or each other. Is there anything you're really burning to share in a direction you want to kind of lean in?
Yeah. Horsemanship is the study of self. And I'll explain. In order for a person to ever realize why they came to Earth, what they're supposed to do here, they got to study themselves. They got to go inward and present outward and be willing to make changes. If you want to go through horsemanship the correct way, in my opinion, now this is just my opinion, this is just what I've experienced, and I can only share what I know. I can share what I know about too, but I'll tell you what I know about and what I know. I know about flying an airplane, but I know horsemanship. I've immersed myself in it for many decades, since I was 5 years old, and I'm 48 now. So it's kind of one of those things where if you really want to know horsemanship, horse-human relationship, you got to start looking at it from a perspective of study self. And a horse will put you under a microscope that nothing else ever has for me. And I love being under that microscope because it's coming from a horse and truth and honesty. They don't know how to lie. They don't have disrespect. You'll hear all these things thrown around. They operate at a level of understanding that harmonizes, agrees in nature. They are nature. We are nature. We've stepped away from nature for a little while. We got to go back. We got to reconnect. And the only way to do that is study yourself. Go inward, present outward, observe the feedback from the horse, and be willing to make changes. Now, is it easy? Well, if it can be done, it's easy. Does it
Interesting.
take time? Yeah, it takes time. We got to work hard at it, but it can be done. I did this so many times over and over for myself and for people. When they want to transition from where they are to where they want to be, they got to look at themselves. It's not about the horse has to do this or the horse has to become this, or you may be creating a relationship, yes, but the only way that that can be done is to study yourself, look inward, and present outward to the horse. Observe the feedback from the horse. Be willing to make changes and present again. And once they see what you're doing, they will unlock or unleash or reveal the beauty that you're trying to go after because it's ready and available, and they'll give it willingly. They want to because they want to ascend higher level of consciousness too. Everything does. Everything from the mineral and the ground all the way up. They want to serve. And in order to serve, you have to climb in consciousness, awareness. The horse is just fine out there swatting flies, eating grass, pooping, procreating. They do great. They don't need us. But when we invite them into the human element correctly, they get to feel things they otherwise wouldn't get to feel. They wouldn't feel love. They wouldn't even feel pain and hurt either. And people like to give value judgments on things, good and bad, and we can, but those are all the same thing. Love and hate, same thing in that class. It's just different degree. And we're gonna have to analyze this in smallest forms. I mean, the micro, you got to go look inward and say, what triggers me into constricting? What makes my heart beat fast? What makes my muscles tense? You hear a word or a name. It has power. But once it comes in, that's when you have or we have the power to transmute that and present it back out in its opposite or in its same. So if you find something that opens you and is loving and you present that to your horse, watch what happens. You find something that triggers you into hate or restriction, or present that and watch what happens. And I encourage people to do that, because how are you ever going to know what chocolate ice cream tastes like until you go try it? So you got to do these things, go through these things for the catalyst of change. The mind is, it's everything, just so you know. and it's conscious and it's subconscious. It's masculine, it's feminine. So whenever you can consciously, masculinely say, I'm going to make a change and present this to the horse, you're programming that subconscious. You're creating something that does exist, may not be aware of. And the thing that you asked this question, what's that one message? Is study yourself. Horsemanship will allow you to do that and allow you to grow in consciousness and in awareness, the skill that everybody needs. But it also lets your horse do it too. You get deeper understandings of yourself, deeper understanding of the horse, and vice versa. Horse gets a deeper understanding of you, and you get a deeper understanding of the horse. But then that's on the micro. Man, there's so much to this, guys. That's the micro piece. Once you go there, then it just, golly, man, it's like a light explosion. It's like conception. You ascend in your from your ego into spiritual self. So we'll just call it for temporary. And you get to see something you never got to see. You get to think things you never got to think. You get to feel things you never got to feel. And then that macro, you're okay. So here's what's happening. You're vibrating at a higher frequency. And then the macro is drawing to you. So whatever area of your life you want to improve, it'll happen. Your wealth, your health, your relationships, your spirituality, your any area that you want to improve. That's how attraction works. Those things are out there vibrating at a frequency. They do. That's a law. They have to. You have to change your vibrational frequency. Come up. How do you do that? Look at yourself, study yourself, present yourself to the horse, and be willing to change, because that's the true and honest feedback. I don't know where else you could get it. You could read books, you could watch videos like this and get some pieces of information, but that's what you do. You gather, prove all things, and hold on to what's good. Take it to the horse, present, and get instant feedback. You get to put yourself under a microscope, best way I can describe it, that is going to allow you to study yourself, improve yourself, ascend in consciousness, become what it is you want, be the change you want to see, be that, immerse yourself in it, practice it. When you do this, law of compensation says you will attract, law of attraction, you will attract what it is you want the most. When we go into those 5 areas, health, that's probably the most important. Without health, you otherwise going into decline. Wealth, you definitely want to become more wealthy. Buy better food for yourself, buy better food for your horse, buy the things that you need to do, because money is spiritual energy. It is vibrating at a certain frequency. And when you climb or attain that same frequency, you attract it. It comes. You don't have to go force it. You don't have to go take it. You're giving something in a vibrational frequency. You receive something in a vibrational frequency. It's called breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, giving, receiving, rather than taking and keeping. A lot of people in the low ego self, they want to take and keep. And that's what they do with horses. That's what you're talking about. I like cowboys, so I can't,
No, and
knock them down. But it's a cowboy type mentality of I'm tougher, I'm dominating, I gotta show who's boss. But they're only killing that frequency. They're lowering it to where they won't attract the things they really truly need. Forcing submission is never the answer. So changing that, transmuting that into a vibrational frequency the horse draws to. You don't have to go chase him. He comes to you. I walk into my pasture, I'm surrounded. They're like flies coming to something that stinks, and it probably does. I probably do stink, but they come to me and they're like, "What are you doing, Dad? What are you doing today?" They're curious. It's peaked so high because they feel an ascension in their consciousness every time we play together. And I'll change words, and we'll talk about words, how powerful they are. But I don't work horses. Quit doing that long ago. We play together. We explore together. We ascend in consciousness together. When they feel that, they can't get enough. They want more. And then whenever they feel, man, I'm going off on a tangent. I apologize, Paige.
this is perfect.
I answered your question, but
Keep
I just
running.
keep on rolling.
I'm the tangent queen.
Okay. So they'll start doing things, horses will start doing things you cannot train them to do. And when I say cannot train them, you wouldn't have had the mental idea in the first place. And then physically, you wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't have been able to. And then spiritually, it's unknown. So they're revealing to you all 3 of those things. And here's what I mean. If you vibrate at a certain frequency and you present that to your horse, and then you get into what's called a feedback loop. where you're presenting, observing, making changes, presenting, observing, making changes. They start to ascend in consciousness with you, but then they start to, I won't say outpace, but they start adding in addition to what you caused, their effect, cause and effect. The only difference in cause and effect is the time that it takes for that to happen. So they're one and the same. And I don't want to get too far off onto that, but to simplify it, you create something in your mind, you present it to your horse in the physical, and then you develop that through vibration and feedback loop. The horse ascends consciously, and then you grab another person, like a child that has cancer, and you bring them into this frequency. Whenever you got your feedback loop going with your horse and it's vibrating at a frequency much higher than that cancer child has ever experienced and felt. So this is going, it's like a wheel spinning. Can't even see it spinning so fast. But you know it's spinning. And that's going on between you and your horse. And it's just a resonance. It's happening. Then you invite this little child in, and they're down here. You know, you're spinning. They're spinning too, but it's not fast. And then they start to feel and think and open. And then that energy transmission comes in. They receive it. And then they start to bring up their resonance or their vibration. And then it starts harmonizing, agreeing, and it's felt. It's hard to explain, but you can actually see it, know what you're looking for. I have intimate relationships with each and every one of my horses. So whenever a sick child comes in on a Monday, when we start this process, they start bringing up their frequency. And then the horse starts doing things you couldn't train that horse to do. You wouldn't even have known to do it. The horse knows what the child needs, but you don't. Or I'll just speak for me. I don't. It's kind of one of those things like I don't know how to change that heartbeat of that child. I can kind of do it, but that horse can do it so fast. It's so instantaneous. And then you'll actually see it's like a flower, this little wilted flower in a child, and then you'll actually see them like bloom. The flower comes open, and then it's a brighter light around that for a little while. I'll get emotional whenever I talk about this, but it's almost like you witness an infinite intelligence come in to this child through the horse and through the interaction with the horse. And then it's like, step back, Justin, step back. I have to actually consciously say, step back. And then the horse will take over and do things I couldn't train the horse to do because they are ascending in consciousness as well. They get to feel something they never felt. They get to experience something they never would have experienced out there in the wild. So when that child and the horse come together, there's value added. There's value enrichment, life enrichment. That's what I mean. And then they both come up together. The horse is bringing the child up, and then they get into a feedback loop. And then by Friday, this child is a different person. They died of themselves. On that Monday, they are not the same on Friday. Every cell in their body is changing. Every thought that's coming in is coming from that same vibration. It's healthy. It's tough to explain this, but hopefully you get kind of an understanding. These laws of the universe, they exist. We must learn them. Horse abides in them. We must abide in them in order to enrich the lives of the horse, of ourselves, and anyone else who comes into contact. So a lot of this information was just passed on from lip to ear. You know, there's a secret society in Scotland where my family's from, and I've kind of come to find out my family started some of these secret societies called Horseman's Word. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but you can Google it and check it out. But in the early 1800s, they had to form a secret society of horsemanship because their government wanted to de-skill the labor to take land, and the farmers were utilizing horsemen to plow the fields, plowmen, and the horses were draft horses. So these plowmen could, from the layman, it looked like they were just manipulating these horses with just little touches and little whispers, and they were like magic. Well, okay, there's something to it, but I believe that they understood these laws of nature and they abided in them. And I'll reveal the secret right now of Horseman's Word and what that word was. Because through my research, I found it by sheer accident. Because a lot of places I went to look, I couldn't find it. And I wanted to know it so bad. I'm like, what is the secret? What is the word? What is the word? And the word is one, O-N-E. You become one with the horse. You become one with other people. You become one with the universe. How? Learn these laws that govern that the heavens and the earth, as above, so below. These are hermetic principles I've come to discover in the last month. But it was like, how do I remember what it is I know? And through horsemanship, I knew this. I could do this. I could go all over the United States and I could present myself to a horse, change the mind of the horse, change the body of the horse, change the actual reality of the horse, and right in front of 350 to 4,000 people crowds, no problem. But then going to explain it to someone, it's like, well, I'm not really sure how I do it. But then I started making these YouTube videos 8 months, 9 months now, 9 months ago, in order to explain it to someone. And then here we are.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you started down that path of explaining it to others. That's my passion. So, uh, I worked in the industry after sport. I almost made it to the 92 Olympics and thankfully didn't because it would have killed that little horse. He was just a little workhorse cross from Ireland competing against the big boys with all of that knee action and those great big pie plate feet, and the fitness program he had to do to get there was ridiculous. But he could get out from underneath something at a stop. You could fall down in front of a jump, stand up, and jump it at maximum height. Ask me
Wow.
how I know. He broke the laws of nature, and now I've gone tangential, but that sort of my early days were sport. And then I tried to teach people, and I call them now, probably not allowed to say this because it's a word that doesn't belong to me, but the muggles of the horse world, like in Harry Potter land, are the people that don't have the magic, and you teach them where to put their hands and where to put their legs and how to ride a whatever. But I would come in the house and talk to my dad and be like, I don't know how to make them get it. And he said, well, Paige, it's a sad fact that you can't. Fast forward to leaving the horse industry because what I took to be the message was the horses that were used as school horses needed to suffer just to accommodate the muggles, the people with the money that were coming in that didn't know better. They would come in once a week, but they wouldn't know how a horse thinks, right? So they wouldn't know whether or not to listen to the horse pro down the road. God knows anyone can hang a shingle, and everybody argues about how you ask for a backup or how you ask for a right lead canter, depending on what discipline you're from. And but generally, as horse pros, we're just supposed to dumb them down to tolerate the muggles who don't know how they think, and I just stepped out. Then I I lost the magic. So having been someone who you could give a horse to that was going sideways, and I could get in that zone and I didn't know what it was, and it would do things for me really quite willingly. um and and then I lost that and everything that defined me along with it.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I learned that this woo-woo stuff was real. The Linda Kahanoff and Dr. Rebecca Bailey, two people famous for starting equine facilitated trauma therapy, were teaching the science behind methods they used because anecdotally they worked, and they had already hypothesized why. And I remember reading the Tao of Equus and being like, what a load of hogwash. My daddy says, science, science, science. Years later, she was teaching me the science. And what I learned while I was there with a horse that wouldn't come anywhere near me because I was masking, was pretending to be someone I wasn't. I was pretending everything was fine. Well, I was down there with a lump growing in my breast that thrummed. And I had just left my husband and I was living in a little leaky shack, and like my life was sideways, but I was doing that whole pretend thing, right? Meeting people, shaking their hands, being like that Monty Python skit, it's merely a flesh wound. Oh. And the horses didn't want to come anywhere near me. And the people there were shocked because they were psychological, they were professionals in the field of psychology and trauma who also worked with horses. I was supposed to be the horse expert. The horses wouldn't come near me. They're like, what? One was finally very compassionate. She just was like, what happened to you? Well, it's it's like that's an awful lot to unpack. The the end of the lesson was that we can hack into this. So I learned the science, and I learned that it's measurable with a heart math device. That when this guy, this Zen Cowboy here, when he talks energy fields, it's something I can measure.
Yeah.
And when he says, we're vibrating on a different frequency, don't switch us off. Don't throw the podcast away. Um, every one of our emotions is actually measurable, and it feels by the other being within our energy fields, and it is contagious, for want of a better word. So that's kind of how I came through the process of learning that if it was something I could relearn to hijack my own nervous system to change and operate in a way that was honestly representing who I was, then that's what's standing in the way of those beautiful muggles who show up and want riding lessons once a week in the world of, horse sport that we're all trying to teach. And they're coming with all this garbage, and they're afraid to make a mistake, and they're masking up, and they're never, doesn't matter how much money they pour at us, right? If we don't get through that, we can't help teach them how to ride horses good. Like, none of the rest matters. So I've gone down that rabbit hole until I could get my own nervous system and my health back from cancer and chemo and all the BS that um, they currently do to treat a disease. I think there's probably change on the horizon. So my passion now is going back into the horse world that I had left, to the beautiful muggles of the horse world. I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to beep that word out now. and and say, okay, I know what the magicians are doing now, and here we can measure it so they'll believe me, and practice it, and they can't fake, right? Because this will show whether they're faking or not, as well as the horses, once we take the rope off. So my mission is to come back and bring light to that. And I found that the same things that we need to create safety and connection with other humans in our lives is what we need to work the magic on a horse and make it go from mechanical and mundane into something that
Yeah.
you were doing without knowing how to translate it. Well, thanks for the translation. So you guys should check out Justin's YouTube channel, and there'll be links to that and to his services, because he does a good job of translating. And when he talks energy fields, just trust me, it's science. For all of you
It,
sort of late on borders.
yeah, it is science. I mean, the
Yeah,
laws of the universe are science. I mean,
yeah.
you look at science, and science hasn't caught up with what horsemanship will teach us. I mean, when I talk to neuroscientists about horsemanship, they tell me the modern science is 30 years behind what we know. So I'm glad that there's things that are measuring and whatnot, but I don't use any of that.
Mhm.
The measurement is the testament from the individual that's experiencing it. So I have 8 horses now. I lost one a month ago, but I have 8 horses, and they're specifically ready. I don't even like to say trained anymore, but they're specifically ready to help people understand what it is we're trying to discuss in this podcast. Horsemanship is something that this country pretty well understood in the beginning. America had horses. It's been steadily declining for the last 100 years, and the new numbers out I just saw, it's declined since the last time I looked, from 9 million to 6 million horses in the US, and from 2.5 million horse owners to 1.5 million horse owners. So it's steadily declining over here. Uh, the thing is, as I state in my book, it's the gateway to reconnect back to nature. Horses, Technology is great. Yeah, we can measure heart, we can measure, brain waves and all those things as proof. But when a person comes through, so I've had in the last 5 years, I've had probably 150 different people come through military, we'll just say military, uh, all walks of life. And some of the psychologists that come with them, they measure heart rate and stuff like that and see a definite change just in one session, 2 hour session. And that's great. I like the data. I like to do that for proof. However, the testimony in these individuals that come through, and I'm not talking verbal testimony, I'm talking actionable, measurable, actionable changes where they are at a brink of a divorce and now 2 years later they're not divorced. They're at a brink of alcoholism destroying everything that I mean, I don't know how you can say what I want to say on stuff because you're not supposed to say it, but unalive, I think is the word. They want to unalive themselves and they don't. 14 months later, they say, man, I don't have those dark thoughts anymore. Those are testimony, but the actionable, measurable things that children that had cancer diagnosis, terminal, 6 years from now, I keep in contact. They're still here, so it's like, well, somebody was wrong, obviously. The thing I'm trying to say is horsemanship going in this direction, science will prove it, but it'll take a long time. They're way behind. What'll be the proof is the behavior, the thoughts and the hearts of people changing, the mind and the body changing, then the behavior. So those 5 areas of life that I like to focus on, which is health, wealth, relationships, happiness, spirituality, all of those improve for each individual in some degree. Their health starts getting better, their wealth starts increasing, their relationships get stronger with their family, the wife, the spouse, uh, children. The happiness level, they find joy in doing mundane things now. They find joy in exploring a higher level of consciousness that they're vibrating at because they're attracting newer things to come in. Are those measurable? Absolutely. And then you look at spirituality. When they go into spirituality and they start understanding there is an infinite intelligence, there is a God, we call it, whatever they call it, doesn't even matter. Doesn't even need to be argued. It's just that they know that there is a energy that is running everything. Then they can draw on it. And that's measurable. That's measurable whenever there's tangible rewards happening from this intrinsic value that they're getting from horsemanship, practicing horsemanship, because it's under the microscope. They literally get to feel something they haven't felt, think something they haven't thought, experience something they've never experienced within themselves. Nothing outward. It's not the horse so much. The horse is just a guide standing there like pointing an arrow, like go that way, go that way. And then they give you a reflection of what they're thinking, like, no, I'm not having this. And that's okay. That's nothing bad. However, if a person's not willing to change, we could probably give it a value judgment of bad because it's throwing that feedback loop off balance. The harmony, the agreement is not there. It's getting less. And when the person recognizes that, feels it, not necessarily sees it. I mean, you can use 5 senses to start, but you're going to start feeling it above your 5 senses. You can't see it, can't taste it, can't even touch it, can't smell it. The only way that it comes in is through ascending in your consciousness. And then what is out there, talk about energy, information, will pour into you. It'll improve your health, improve your wealth, improve your relationships, improve your happiness, improve your spirituality. And then it's just it's like a ladder, just as a simple analogy. You just climb one more rung. If you go too fast too soon, you'll fall off. So what? Get back up, climb again. It's not a big deal. We don't fail unless we quit or unalive. We only have temporary defeat. And in that temporary defeat is the growth, is the opportunity for growth, the development. It's the best lesson. Then you'll start looking at a challenge in a different way. Start looking at it as something you want, something you find joy in, because you know that happiness comes from joy. And whenever you can overcome or be victorious in a challenge, then you're on the right track. So we like to develop what called flow state, and it's probably defined in a bunch of different ways. But at my school, I kind of laid it like this: you develop a skill, you in that skill you gain experience, and through skill and experience you overcome the challenge. If you don't have the skill and you don't have the experience and you take on too big of a challenge, then you get temporary defeat. Not a big deal. You learned. It's like, oh yeah, I tried that, didn't work. I got bucked off, whatever. Okay, so then you go back and go, all right, well, I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm not trying to do what he does or she does. I want to go inward and I want to present to this horse the best version of me. I want to bring my consciousness up. I want to open, and I want to start at the level of understanding this horse has, at the level of understanding I have. I want to place all that out. I want to develop a skill, and then I want to develop some experience, and then the challenge is overcome. And then when you're operating on a pretty much even keel, that's flow state. And then you can ascend through attraction rather than trying to force or take something. And when the horses see us do that, they will give you little boosts. They'll show you, oh, here it is, here it is. This is how you do it. And then it's flow state with you and your horse. And we've heard lots of descriptions, unity, moving in unity. That's a good description. However, when we start thinking something else, in other words, when we got an awareness going with myself and the horse, and outside influences start to come in, and we're aware of them, that's good. That's a good thing. But if they throw us off of this feedback loop, we could call it a bad thing. But it's actually a good thing if you think about it, because you're getting an awareness of what throws you off. What is it that's the outside influence that throws off this feedback loop with me and my horse? And then try it away from the horse. So you're driving in your car. Can you focus on yourself driving the car? Outside influences are coming in, but they should have little to no effect on your feedback loop with you and your car.
Mhm.
And somebody cuts you off in traffic, are you going to bang on the steering wheel and yell at them, or are you going to just notice that outside influence? What does it do to my thinking, my emotion, my attitude, and ultimately my actions? So we focus on 4 things in horsemanship that we can control. I cannot control outside influences. Don't even try. I can't control a horse. I'll tell you right now. I don't even try. I control myself, and I present through action. Well, through all 4 things, I present through thought, emotion, attitude, action. I observe the feedback in the horse. I make changes to one or all of those and present again. As I do this, practice this repeatedly, law of repetition, I get a new skill. I get experience, and new challenges come in. They're easy to accomplish. So whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If I want to take a horse, I want to get on an airplane, fly out to Canada. You show me a horse, give me all the descriptions you want. I don't even care. I'm going to ask this horse everything I need to know. I'm going to present from inside here my thoughts, my heart, my emotions, my attitude, my action. I'm going to present to him. I want to observe through the reflections of his body what he's thinking, what he's feeling, what he thinks, what is his emotion, what is his attitude, what are his actions, or her, doesn't matter. They're all the same. We share those same things. We are so much like the horses. We share almost everything identical. We're all one. The only thing that they don't do that I haven't been able to prove is what we can do is imagine, analyze our own thoughts. I'm not sure they do that. I could say, yeah, they probably do, but I couldn't prove it.
Right.
So it doesn't even matter. It's one of those things that you can know when you present yourself to the horse and you observe the feedback and you're willing to make changes and you start to grow in this feedback loop, develop a skill, develop experience, challenges come. It's in flow state. It's not forced or taken. It's attracted. So it doesn't matter. People, I've trained for all kinds of, I forget the word you use, but I call them hoity-toities. They got a lot of money, but they don't have much practice. They haven't practiced enough, and they don't know which direction. They don't let the horse guide them in the direction that they want to go. They want to change, but they don't know how. They haven't sat and thought, what am I thinking about this critically? What am I thinking? Based on outside influences, what am I thinking? You know, do I need to buy a new bit? Do I need to buy some shinier spurs? Do I need to get a heavier whip? All of these things that are outside influences, they got to realize that those are their influences, they're necessary influences, but they can't control those. They can control what's inside and then present accordingly. So I kind of went off on a little sidestep there, but the fundamentals and concepts that are more important than any kind of mechanics or equipment is what we're after. So is it going to impede the feedback loop if I allow this outside influence to come into our feedback loop? So I've created a relationship with a horse on the ground at liberty. Okay, now I got to start adding stuff. Do I want to add a bitless bridle or do I want to add a bit into their mouth? The customer may say, I want a bit. Okay, well, we can get there, but we're going to start with a bitless bridle. And then we're going to start asking questions, observing feedback, making changes, and we're going to grow in this relationship, develop skill, experience, and challenges that come. And then the day that comes to, I want to introduce a mouthpiece to this horse based on the owner's desires. We can do that correctly. However, in my world, no one ever goes to the bit because it would just break down everything that was built up in the time that we built it up. It would almost be a impedance or a hindrance at that point. So most of every one of my clients stays bitless these days. Now, in the past, through the transition period, some of them would go back bit to a bit, but then they suffer in their struggles, which I thought they didn't need to, but in understanding, they did need to because they couldn't never learn. They can't experience one polarity without experiencing the other. So they had to go that way. That was their catalyst for change to come back to the pendulum swing in the law of rhythm to understand. I wrote in a bit 20 years ago. So that's how I can have an understanding of I'll never go do it again. Do I bash people for riding in a bits? No, they got to do that. They need to learn. But it's one of those things when they're ready for the change, it'll be stronger if they have an understanding of those polarities. You know, they're the same thing. And I like to use this analogy, a bit or a bitless bridle. They're the same thing. They're 1 degree on the polarity difference. You know, that's it. We're going to use them the exact same way. We're going to apply pressure. We're going to release
Yeah.
pressure
We
and
want them to
question
trust the pressure and reach into the pressure, no matter whether that pressure is on the nose or the lips or the tongue. Yeah.
yes. Now there's byproducts of utilizing one or the other. And we could go into that if you have enough time, but it gets into the body of the horse. We're interrupting or obstructing or irritating the body of the horse. Well, the brain of the horse is monitoring the body system. So if I'm using something to impede that, the brain is going to raise red flags. The horse is going to think different thoughts than I'm really trying to present. They're going to respond in manners that are undesirable than what I'm trying to create, which is desirable. So I take and look at it as an equation, and there's variables in the equation, and then there's an equal sign and then an outcome. And they're all different planes of this. So in the mental plane, spiritual plane, the physical plane, if I impede any of those planes in the equation, plugging in different variables, the outcome is going to be different. So to break it down into simple terms, if I'm using equipment, mechanical means of communication, and it has an effect, cause and effect, and I'm interrupting the mental plane. So I want my horse to focus on my breathing, my heart rate, my muscle tension, but he can't because I put a bit in his mouth and I hurt him. Where did his thoughts go? Right to the source of pain. That's going to override anything I'm trying to present. Then it starts getting into force, you know, submission. You'll see people do this. They don't even know what they're doing. They're not aware. That's our job as light workers. We're supposed to bring awareness. That's the point. Not repel people, attract them. How do we do it? Well, we can do what we can control, which is ourselves. Present to the horse. Let the visual show them. I don't have to prove anything at that point. I don't have to take a measurement of hearts. I don't have to do these things. I can just say, look, with your senses, with your little quarter-inch viewpoints, look. And then if they're attracted to that, then we go further. But if they're not ready. Their ears aren't open, their eyes aren't open to see and hear. I heard this, and I don't know, you called me the Zen Cowboy, so maybe I should say something Zen. But when the student's ready, the master appears.
Right.
I don't know who said it, but that's pretty good, right? And horses are that for me. When I was ready for a certain horse, he appeared. And 5 years before, I wouldn't been ready for this particular horse. So that horse was the teacher, and I was the student. And that's the way I consistently look at this. These horses are teachers. They have not separated from the things humans have in our society. They abide in the laws of nature. They resonate there. And I've got to change me to harmonize with them so that they'll teach me what it is I want to share as a light worker with people. Um, I don't know how else to say it, but that's it.
It's interesting that you used the word light worker, and it's coming up more and more often for me, but it is never something that I thought that I would be, but it does probably describe what I do.
You are, Paige.
Yeah.
You are a light worker,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Yeah. Thanks. So are you. Thanks for spreading the light. Um, in the process of learning new ways to be, whether you're working with someone who is there with addictions or trauma, or a horse person learning new ways with their horses, there's often um, always, I guess, past versions of ourselves that we don't want to be anymore. And I wanted to kind of take this opportunity to say, um,
Yeah,
but we don't need to shame them or judge them or disown them, because whatever
no,
version of ourself, whether they were doing good enough or not, it was the best they could do under that circumstance with what they knew or thought to be true at the time. So I
yeah,
wonder if you can tell me anything about helping people through any kind of change, because I think it doesn't matter, again, whether it's a rider or somebody who is feeling shameful of past versions of themselves.
yeah. So that's on a polarity scale. We'll look at that. So if a person comes through my gates and we get into horsemanship together, and they've suppressed trauma and it starts to surface, and then they feel a feeling of guilt or shame, that's a low vibrational frequency. We can just identify it on a scale of low and high in that class. It'll cause them to feel constricted, heart rate, breathing, muscles. And that's an awareness I want people to understand is important to have, because once you can feel that, you can transmute the energy. It's the same energy that caused you to do that as the same energy that will cause you to open. So in order to do that, they've got to have a trigger a body response of, say, relaxation. Horses breathe to do it. They'll take a deep breath and then they'll just breathe and relax. And they open. Their heart settles, their breathing settles, their digestive system settles, the muscles in their body settle. Breathing is the first answer that I will tell people when they start to cringe at their past. It's like, breathe, go ahead and take a deep breath consciously. Masculine side of you has to come in and say, hey, I want to breathe. I want to drop my shoulders. I want to open to this. And I want to let this be understood that I've grown from that past person or past self or past experience or past trauma. I've grown from that. It makes me cringe, but that's okay. It lets me know I grew. I'm a better person now. And then breathe. And through that breathing, have gratitude that you're standing on the earth, that you're standing with a horse, that you are observing yourself growing in light and love. No judgment. That class of polarity, judgment and love. probably the opposites in some retrospect. You know, we can say love and hate, but what causes hate? Judgment. So we'll just say judgment and love. So stop judging yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. No one is going to be as hard on you as yourself. So you have what you can control, your thoughts, your emotions, your attitude, and your action. You have the ability to say, I control me. I control me. I, the masculine, me, the feminine. I control me. I can create. I can have intuition. I can do these things. I can just, it's like, okay, I'm driving me. How do I drive me? Breathe, relax. And the only way it gets better is what? Practice. That's what horsemanship's so beautiful. We get to do it over and over and over. It's not just one and done and move on.
Mhm.
It's practice. And then you can look at that trauma as something, wow, I went through it. I grew. I overcome that obstacle, that challenge. I may not have had the skill and experience to really do it, but now I do. I have skills. I have experience. I can look at that in the past and I can allow it to either trigger me in a thought, emotion, and an attitude and action I want or I don't want. If it does trigger something that's undesirable I don't want, I have the energy to transmute it or the power to transmute the energy. I can say, well, I used to get so upset at that past experience. Now I look at it as I'm so thankful I went through that. I'm so thankful I struggled, went through that struggle, and mined these nuggets of beautiful things I can share with other people or horses. So, not to go too long-winded on this, breathe. Gotta breathe. Most people don't even know how to breathe. But whenever you can breathe, anytime that a traumatic thought comes into the mind, it's got to pass through or it gets stuck. You can get rid of it or you can keep it. It's a choice. But it's one of those things that when it comes in the thought and you go observer and guide of yourself, I observe this thought. I observe the emotion I get off this thought. I observe the attitude that comes from that thought and the emotion. And I observe the action I'm going to do. You might pick up rocks and throw them and yell. Great. It's a release. You needed to do it. Your body needed to cry. Cry. Your body needed to do whatever it needs to do. Let it do it. Trying to force submission on your own body is probably the hardest thing people have to unlearn. And horsemanship helps us learn how to do that. Stop judging ourselves so hard. Who else is going to stand there and judge you? The horse isn't doing it. He's there to help guide you out of judgment into love and light. A person has so much power. They don't even know how to use it, thankfully, in a lot of regards. But that horse will start revealing your power. They'll start showing you that your spirit is so much stronger than you could ever imagine, that you have at the snap of your finger the ability to change a thought from a bad to a good. We'll give it a value judgment there. An emotion from a bad to a good, or an emotion or an attitude from a bad to a good, and an action from a bad to a good. And it's okay to make a mistake. And I encourage my people to do it. I have 5 levels of horsemanship that I teach. It starts on the ground, transitions to their back, and then goes out into the real world. And in a short nutshell explanation, when we're on the ground, I'm going to explain to them, you're going to make mistakes, and I encourage you to do it. You're not going to understand the polarities if you don't. You're going to go too fast too soon. The horse is going to start trotting when you don't want him to. All of these things are going to be okay. This is good. This is sorting through the process of controlling what you can, which are your thoughts, emotions, attitude, action. Because when you get up on their back, it's acutely more profound. Your thoughts, your emotions, your attitude, your action, what you present to the horse is much more acute, especially on a wild horse that's observing everything in life and death. I've touched wild horses to the point where it's almost like a explosion of energy passes through both of us. The very first touch of a wild horse is my most favorite thing to do. I don't even like to take it from other people because it's so valuable. When I get called to a person that is having trouble with a wild horse, they can't touch them. I get them to the brink, man. I get them right to the brink where I could. And then I put the person in and I'm like, here, it's your time. You need to do this because what's getting ready to happen is so transformational that you ascend in consciousness so much faster, further in thoughts, emotion, ability, attitude, and action, and the ability to control that. that first touch manifests into something that is built upon. It's a foundation that's built upon, to where when you're on their back and you're asking them to guide you in becoming a better human, they are going to do it in a manner that is so real, it's so profound, that you share thoughts. You go mind to mind, you go heart to heart, emotion to emotions, you go attitude to attitude, you go actions to actions. That's the feedback loop I'm talking about. When an outside influence tries to interrupt that, you may think a different thought. Well, your is still there. He'll gradually, subtly bring you back, or abruptly. Either way, the scenarios are different. But it's same on all those: the emotion, the attitude, the action. So to circle back around to answer your question, when a person comes in and they're dwelling on the past, or they're anticipating the future, they're in a depression in the past, or they're in anxiety in the future, we bring them through breath into higher level of consciousness, right back to this moment, this right here, right now. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be. And then when we do, you observe what it is that is the answer to whatever scenario. So a person will go through my 5-part series of 5 questions to get a deeper understanding of the horse. It's a series of 5 questions so the horse can get a deeper understanding of the person. But also, you get a deeper understanding of yourself. That person gets a deeper understanding of themselves. The horse gets a deeper understanding of themselves, because they're starting to transition from where they are to where they want to be. They're starting to ascend in consciousness. They're gathering information, transferring back and forth from the human, and in a lot of different ways. It's coming from mind to mind. It's coming from heart to heart, body to body, gut to gut. The blood is flowing in the body. There's energies that are coming alive that were dormant, or there wasn't an energy that was in the bodies to resonate, but it's pulled from a higher level of consciousness into the bodies to resonate. And then it's recognized, and then it's felt, and then it's developed a skill through experience to overcome challenges. So this is a long answer to your question, but when the person feels they're coming out of that darkness, they're healing themselves. They're starting to recognize, I do control my thoughts, my emotions, my attitude, my action. I can present it in my horsemanship. I can observe in real time the feedback from my horse, the thoughts, the feelings, the actions. Those are going to get into a circular, uninterrupted pattern of rhythm. And then it's going to flow in flow state. And then that darkness, there's nothing but light. It's replaced with light. So it's like, you can't think bad thoughts if you're thinking good thoughts. You can't have the same exact thought of bad and good at the exact same time. Or I can't. I haven't been able to. So if I just keep the thoughts I want, and the emotions I want, and the attitude I want, and the action I want, I practice it. And then law of repetition, repeat it with horsemanship, through horsemanship. That's the sacred art. That's the horseman's word. That's one. You just became one because you are a direct reflection of what the horse is giving you. It's a mirror. You're his mirror. You're his mirror, vice versa. And then you start to become one. And then when you transition level 3 of my school, you get on their back. You really understand what your hand is doing on that rein. You really understand what your leg is doing on the side of the horse's body. You really understand the balance that you are spine to spine in centeredness with the horse, and moving and exploring earth, and overcoming obstacles, developing skill and experience and new challenges on the mental, spiritual, and physical plane. So that's the answer to if someone's coming in with some dark trauma, I'm gonna have the horse guide them through coming out of that, to where they don't think that anymore. They'll look at their past experience as a blessing, that they got to go through that struggle and learn what they came to learn on earth. You got to think of it. If you came to learn love, you're going to have a lot of unloving experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to do it. And you got to go through it. And you got to realize, I get to go through this because I'm fixing to learn something so profoundly beautiful. And thank goodness there's horses to help guide me through this. And then I get to help other people through horses guide through their experience, their transformation.
Hmm.
That's the way I do it. That's how I show it. It's through experience, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's some themes that it's interesting to hear that I was picking up on through there that I've been talking about lately about judgment, which tends to be prevalent everywhere, but in the horse world for sure, and that um, our nervous systems protect us from that with as much vehemence as if it were a lion, right? And that certainly once I became aware of judging others and judging myself and understanding that these negative emotions and experiences that I'm going through are meant to be processed and passed through and learned from as part of growth, I could detach from that myself and kind of be like, well, that was, that was my learning journey and feel compassion there. And it's something I want to see spread in the horse industry. And I think another model um I'm looking for places that present other ways for people to learn and be around horses if they are from a non-horsey background and this is their dream to get into it. And even if they, maybe especially if they are already from an indoctrinated horse background of some variety, um, you don't have to step into a model that is sport driven necessarily. And there's there's some other way out there, like you're presenting, for people to come and have experiences with horses that feel good. If you're somebody that is spending your hard-earned time and money and going out to the barn and you feel bad, get in touch. There are other ways and good people like Justin, and other ways of operating in the world. Um, I wanted to take a moment to touch on something that is being debunked in the horse world, and I don't know whether you ever gave it very much credence, and that's dominance theory. And do you have any thoughts about how it has been viewed as the norm and is being debunked and how that meshes with your world?
Yeah. Well, let me back up to something that you just said and
Okay.
kind of clarify that science has really messed up on, and this is just my opinion. Uh, they've given a value judgment on the word negative.
Right.
Uh, Negative isn't to be good or bad. Negative positive is not good or bad. Negative is the bringing in, um, like in a battery. Negative part of a battery, side of a battery is a cathode in science now. So they kind of started changing some of these terms, but the negative is the intuition. It's the feminine. It's the creating part. It's a beautiful thing. It's the drawing in. The positive would be like the masculine, the building, the doing type, just in simple terms. So the point that I say this is if we're trying to study these laws of nature, laws of polarity, negative, positive, you got to have both. You got to have the builder, the doer, the creator, the builder. You got to have both. You've got to understand that negative is creating, it's intuitive, and positive is manifesting in reality, we'll call it. And we could dive into a lot deeper on that, but it's not bad on a to experience a negative because that is going to be where a source of growth comes from. That is generation, creation, and then regeneration, and then it repeats. So to answer your question on the dominance piece, people have allowed some of that to filter in through traditional training practices. Because I stated earlier, where intelligence ends, violence begins. And that's what I had seen growing up, forced submission through pain or fear of pain. So one of the things that I try to help people understand, if they want to be a barrel racer, if they want to be a jumper, if they want to go to the Olympics doing equitation, it doesn't even matter. the core concepts and fundamentals that we talked about here have to be the center nucleus of their relationship. When it starts to get impeded or obstructed or irritated, it's easily recognized and then corrected. So the negative positive are going to have to play into that. If a person puts a bit in a horse's mouth, they have to understand the cause and effect of that. Rules and certain things say you have to have a bit in the horse's mouth. Some people just slap one in there to be compliant, and then they go on down the road, and then they suffer struggles they wouldn't have to. The relationship struggles, the physical ailments from the horse getting hurt, on and on. The point is, when we're in balance with the negative and the positive, and we create a relationship, a value-based relationship where life enrichment for both horse and human are going to happen. When I used to show horses, I went for the experience. I went for me to experience something with this partner, this guide, to help me through what we were experiencing. Not to win a medal, not to wow the crowd. Well, I did one time. I wore a chicken suit and wowed the crowd. I'll take it back. I did that, but it was not at the expense of the horse. I just wanted to experience everything that we ever did in the show world was just an experience. It was to learn and grow. Were there negative and positives? Absolutely. Were there, let's give it value judgment, good and bad? Absolutely. But that's how we learn and grow and correct. The problem is if it's just continually perpetuated in the undesirable and there's no changes to course correct, there's no different perspectives to look at the one thing, then we're in trouble because it'll manifest into something of decline. It won't manifest in something of incline. And that's what the balance, the harmony, the balance. So I've had tons and tons of show people come in, all in Colorado. Here, I've traveled to different places, high-end clients. I'm talking, they'll fly me out. They paid the big money to do this, one-on-one sessions. We're going to do this. And it's just sometimes simple course correction, calibrations, and mechanical use of traditional practices that were in their mind. They thought they had to do because everybody did it, and they just never questioned it. And I'm blanketing this pretty big. We could dive deep on different scenarios, but the core fundamental common denominator was that they just weren't willing to change. They didn't understand that they had control of themselves to present something different in opposition of mainstream traditional horse training practices and mechanical uses of devices to force submission. Having said it that way, when somebody comes in and they're willing to change, but they're scared, because it's a fear-based society, in case you haven't looked around and noticed, a lot of fear. Fear of change is what it is. When they haven't looked into the possibility of making a change, going against the grain or whatnot, and then they're exposed to it, but guided through it correctly, it's much more effective change. It's efficiently going to happen because it's not taken, it's attracted. So I always want to offer a perspective change first. Hey, I see that you want to do X. Let me just think of an example. I see that you want to go into the hunter jumper world. You want to do that. That's great. And you're watching other people do what they do, and you watch little glimpses of videos that are edited from a person doing whatever they do to teach you how to be a better hunter jumper. Okay, take that, but hold on to what's good from it, and then create your own unique relationship with your horse, and then add in what is needed to accomplish the goal or the challenge. If it impedes it, interrupts it, or irritates it, take it away. So the thing is you got to, I don't really want someone to just go trial by error, because I did that. It's a long way to do it. And that's what kind of my job is, why they fly me out to do what we do, is I want to give them a little bit of shortcut, and what took me 10 years, I want to show them that'll take a year, just as an example. And that's what people need. That's what people want. And that's what people need. So it's kind of one of those things. If a person comes into horsemanship and they're wanting to go in a direction, they've got to go inward first, present outward to the horse, develop a relationship, and then start piecing at and in the time, man, how's the best way to say this? The law of correspondence is what I'm thinking, but in the time that it's needed, it will come. If they start forcing, moving too fast too soon, it's not going to happen. It's going to fall apart. It's going to unravel. Now, the dominance thing, that is traditional practices, and I won't say that it was never necessary, because obviously it was. If you're training thousands of soldiers to get on horses and go fight a war, you're not going to have a lot of time to create relationships that are going to be of any value other than getting on a back, moving from point A to B, accomplishing the mission. But that's a polarity. That's over. We're not doing that anymore. You know, this is backyard horse owners mostly, but then it's weekend warriors, I guess we could call them, or it's maybe highly trained, competitive type individuals that are practicing horsemanship, which they should be, and trying to accomplish a mission or a goal. But there's a right and a wrong, and the point is, unless you know these laws of nature, it's going to be real hard to determine what's right and wrong. You know, someone will say, well, you know how it's right, it works. Yeah, but how sustainable is it? You know, how long-term sustainability is it? I mean, are you going to do something in dominance that's going to shorten your career or your relationship with your horse from, say, a 3-year to an 18-month, or a 5-year to a 1-year? I mean, those are all in that equation and those variables for an outcome. So the dominance thing, I think it's run its course. We don't really need it anymore. It's not going to serve us well, the horse human ascension and consciousness. Dominance, you know, is there a time for it? Yeah. I mean, if my horse walks into traffic, I'm going to dominate him to get out of the road, but he's going to understand why.
Mhm.
So a lot of times people use dominance and there's no reasoning for the horse to understand. And some people will say, well, that's an effective measure of getting the horse to do what I want it to do. But how long? How sustainable is it? And then what are we doing? Are we reaching a ceiling with this horse in the relationship? Or is the person reaching a ceiling of understanding, of attracting more information through conscious ascension? Those are questions that need to be asked. I mean, I know the answers to these, but I want people to creatively think through these things. And in order to get a different perspective, or perception, I'm sorry, they got to look at it from a different perspective. The perception changes, that's when we'll see real change in the horse world and horsemanship. Now, me going out and forcing people and, you know, trying to cram this down people's throat is repelling. I understand that. I tried it. That's a dominance thing. See, it wasn't sustainable. I mean, I stood in front of 350 people and told them they all suck. That I had to try it. But it's like, no, that's dominance. That's not going to attract anybody for effective change. It's not going to change the thoughts and the hearts, and then eventually the behaviors in people. So the thing is, people coming in, you know, and I've stood in stalls of many barns, many people, many horses, and they're wanting to go down a pathway that they've been pre-programmed and conditioned of dominating their horse, because that's what they see, that's what they hear, that's the echo chambers they're in, that's the products that are being sold, that's the sport, that's all of this combination in that equation. And you're equaling an outcome that's very barbaric, to say the least. You know, you look at horse racing. Am I against horse racing? I mean, if the horse loves to run, I'm for it. But other than that, yeah, I think it's pretty barbaric. It's a dominating, you know, that's polarity. That's a pretty dominating sport on the human and the horse, if you think about it. All for what? What is the purpose? You got to kind of analyze why. Where's the why? Is it for money? Is that more important than the horse? What's first? Money first? Horse first? Second place? Who's there? All of these things has to be sorted through in that equation and plugging in those variables to equal that outcome. So as far as, I'm not even sure if I answered the question that you asked, Paige. I apologize, but
No, you
the
do
tangent
it.
in me.
Yeah, the tangents are what make it, though. I'm all about the tangent. I'm the tangent queen. And never apologize for those journeys that you take us on. I think part of your talent is obviously that you're a storyteller, and storytellers change lives because we let them do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful story we all get to write, we all get to tell. And that's what is more important than anything. Horsemanship taught me that there's one thing you can look at, and there's 360 degrees of viewpoint. So what I'm seeing from here, someone else might be seeing from here. That's perspective all coming back to the one. The fractals of one going out to gather information, coming back to the one. So there's many horses, there's many people. They're all unique relationships. They're all unique experiences. They're all unique perspectives. And they're all very important for us to grow in consciousness. You can't have all positive and no negative. It'll reach a ceiling, or vice versa. You'll never see it. So the balance has to be there. The harmony and balance has to be there. On a big scale, a long-term scale of like a timeline. And we'll talk in horsemanship. We went through the era of the knights with their armor, a lot of weight. They put on horseshoes to cover ground to get to the battles. Now we got horses that are standing around in pastures and then going on trail rides on the weekend. Do they really need horseshoes? I mean, those are just questions that need to be answered for the unique relationship between that person and that horse and that perspective. From my perspective, I haven't put horseshoes on a horse in 20 years, and I lived in the Rocky Mountains 13. So the horse will adapt. I mean, no one goes out to the Mustang herd and puts horseshoes on the horses. No one goes out and gives them vaccines. No one does these things. However, inviting them into the human element, some of those things might need to change, maybe. And that's a big universe doesn't really know what to do with maybe, but the perspectives from those people, that's important. And that's what brings us together. So I would never debase or devalue someone for the level of understanding that they're at and the perspective they're looking from. If I've got some skill and experience in the matter, I'll try to share of my perspective to help them look from a different perspective. Maybe they don't come all the way over to my perspective, but they change their position on looking at, say, horseshoes on a horse. And then they realize, maybe I don't need to have my horse standing in horseshoes for 6 months out of the year because we don't do whatever. Those are just things that need to be brought up. And then that's just the physical. Then it can go into mental. Maybe I don't need to put so much mental tension on my horse and doing the things I think are so important at this moment in my life. The thing is, when a person can start looking inward and study themselves and know the four things they can control: thoughts, emotions, attitude, action, and then put that into practice through law of repetition and with everything, really, the mental, spiritual, and physical plane, but everything in horsemanship and in those planes, and then create something that doesn't exist. That, man, it's tough to explain this on a video. It does exist. They aren't aware of it. But when they ascend, they start to see that it exists. They create it, they attract it to them, and it manifests into a reality. And then, whenever this expands like it should, the horse world will become much different. The world will become much different, which it already has. I've already seen a lot of change just in my little experience here on Earth, in the horse world. I'll call it horse community now because it used to be referred to as horse industry, and it was an industry. We got to perpetuate it through money and products, and it went through its time. It ran its course. Now it's still similar, but it's shifted in degree. It's on the same polarity, so it's shifted into a different degree to where now people are starting to reconnect with themselves in nature with horses and starting to understand, oh wow, we can jump a jump more efficiently, more effectively without mental and physical tension, definitely spiritual tension, but it's going to harmonize and become more beautiful because the collective is starting to bring that up. But I talk to a lot of people, and maybe it's just because I changed in my vibrational frequency and my perspectives, and I've attracted different people, kind of like you, Paige, and that is what I'm seeing. I don't see bad as much as I do good. It's outweighing it. It's the love is starting to become a lot more apparent. The judgment is falling away, and people are starting to recognize, oh, I can still ride my horse in competition, but on such a higher level of consciousness between both of us. Yes, you can. You can think it and do it. Why pick up a rein? Why whack him with a crop? Well, if you can think it and do it and become it, and then you can practice it over and over enough to where it's like, well, I thought it, my horse did it. I didn't even need to do. Well, you actually you ascended to that level that horses are trying to show you that you can. You can ascend to a level and not insult the intelligence of the horse. We all can. And I got to quit saying you. People can ascend to a level of consciousness and get mind to mind with a horse to where they don't have to do. You're vibrating at such a so much higher frequency and spirituality. You're both ascended there. I mean, it's tough to explain, but you've both ascended there to where the energy in your mind, in a person's mind, the horse picks it up. He has a receiver in his mind. You have a transmitter. They receive it. They have a transmitter. You receive it. So if you could jump a jump by just simply thinking it without doing it, what did you become? What did that become? I can only tell you what I know, and I know this. I can tell you what I know about, but I can honestly and truthfully tell you I know this. Mind to mind works. If you do something enough, I mean, you could probably understand this with a dog. If you think I'm going to take my dog on a walk and you stand up to go get the leash, you're not even there yet. He's at the door.
Yeah.
How did he know that? Well, through practice, thinking, doing, becoming, thinking, doing, becoming, practice. Stay in the laws of nature, harmonize, agree. Horses draw to that, dogs draw to that, people draw to that. You'll look like a wizard. They'll call you a wizard. That's why there's secret societies of horsemen in Scotland started, because these guys were using plow horses with touches of fingers, voice commands, and plowing the 2,000-pound animals, plowing these fields with limited energy of physical brute strength. No, it wasn't dominance. It was ascension in consciousness and
Mhm.
going mind to mind, accomplishing a mission. Who cares what the mission is? Some people say, oh, using a horse to plow a field, that's horrible. However, what if that horse ascended in consciousness and got to feel feelings and think thoughts and do what he does and loves what he gets to serve and do? And we serve together. I'm not above him. He's not above me. We're an equal. We're both living, breathing beings trying to discover ourselves, ascend consciously through mind, body, spirit complex that we are. And then when you discover that and you go mind to mind, there's nothing you cannot accomplish. Some of the greats have done it. They don't know how to tell other people how they did it. That's our job. We'll tell them.
Yeah, we're light workers. That's our job.
Try.
Thank you so much for this today. I'm going to bring a few things together. There's themes that I've been hearing through your work that jive, of course they do, with other things I've been picking up on. And one that if you're looking at the horse industry and you don't like the way you feel in it and you want to change it, look for what you love and look for more of that. And if you do that, um, like Justin said, you just keep getting more of it. You want to be careful where you focus because our minds are incredibly powerful. Our thoughts are incredibly powerful. So if you're somebody who focuses on what's wrong with the horse industry exclusively, you'll find more of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Law of attraction.
So let's find each other, horse people who are looking for ways that feel better to them. Our definition of horsecraft is the art of establishing a mutually beneficial relationship with horses. And we've found that across all of the disciplines, you can find horses that are happy to serve, like you said. They'll show up and they'll pull the plow as long as we don't over ask, as long as we appreciate them afterwards, and as long as they know what their mission is. There are others who are going to say a big no to all sorts of things we might, concoct in our head as a great idea to do with horses. And you got to listen to their no's. So in the past, my ancestors would have bred horses that weren't likely to say no to doing ranch work because that's what they needed, and they had to rope them in the morning to saddle them, get on them, and work them in the mountains. But we don't, most of us don't need to do that because we're in it just to get something good out of life joining with horses if we're adult amateur horse lovers. So I'm just encouraging, if that's you, follow people like Justin. I like to curate people who are on the same wavelength, join our communities, and spread more of what you love. Um, and I think on this note, I'll thank our podcast listeners very much for listening, and there'll be some links for you to follow. And thank you for being here. And then from this point on, I'm going to edit out the questions because our lovely listeners have left a few notes here, which I'll read, and then I'll let people ask you some questions, Justin.
Okay.
So I have, when you called it the horse community rather than the horse industry, Linda Richard said, I love that, Justin. Horse community rather than horse industry. It certainly has a whole different feel to it. Thank you for that thought.
Yeah.
It
You're
really
welcome.
does.
Yeah, and that's that growth in consciousness, like a plow horse back in the 1800s. We've ascended in consciousness collectively. So we have a tractor now. We don't need the horse to do that. So the horse actually got a boost in consciousness. So it's no longer an industry. It's a community.
mm,
So there.
yeah, community of horse lovers. Linda also said, I've read Justin's book and love everything he says. Thank you, Paige and Justin, for this webinar. I'd love to listen to a conversation between Josh Nickel and Justin. This would be a beautiful experience.
I'm willing. I don't know who that is, but okay.
Well, I'm going to look it up after this. So thank you, Linda. And Jessica Turcott has said, it's been lovely listening to you, Justin. I'll be following you. Take care.
Thank
So
you. Mhm.
having read some of the comments, I want to open the floor and invite you into the chaos of unmuting your mics or putting up your hand and asking a question. If you want me to start, I'm just looking at my list. Kate, do you have anything that you would like to ask Justin today or any comments? Sometimes Kate's at work and she can't answer.
Hi, Kate can answer. She's not at work. She's just trying to figure out her phone. Okay, here I am. We're having soup. Bob's here too.
Thanks for coming, Bob.
No problem.
Okay, so here's, I don't know if it's a question so much as kind of poorly muddled thoughts, but I know with people, and like when I say people, I shouldn't even say people. I know with me, um, a lot of times, it's a day like today too. I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but it's pretty cold. It's pretty dreary. You just want to stay in bed and not do anything. Do you ever think that it's like that with the horses? Like that maybe they won't be happy at the gate, but maybe they're happy they did something in the end. Because I know sometimes like I don't want to do anything, and then Bob starts like, building energy around the house, and I'm being pushed into doing things all of a sudden, and then I feel pretty darn good about it. So I just kind of wonder if there's a way to do that with horses and kind of, you know, make that happen without, just dragging them over to, you know, do what we want.
Yeah, so I have an interactive system to get desirable results. And it's has a starting point and it has a process to go through. And then I get to ask the horse how they feel, what they want to do, and through the reflections in their body. And then a lot of times I'll have in my mind what I want to do, but it changes. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. So, in other words, I have a series of questions I ask my horse on the ground, 5-part series. I'll ask them 5 questions. I'll ask them to back up. I'll ask them to go to a left circle around me, a right circle around me, come forward without pulling them. I'm drawing them to me, and then a ground tie as a stopping point to take a breath, relax, and then if they're antsy, I'll see it. If they're bored, I'll see it. If they're wanting to do something else, I'll see it. If they're drawing to me, repelling, all of these things will get revealed. That's the horse having a voice. So as an example, if I've got to well, we'll just talk about Colorado because it was cold there too about this time of the year. 9,000 feet's where I lived. So I
Oh,
would have to go maybe move cows today. And I can use a four-wheeler, or I might not could, because depending on where the cows were. So I need to use a horse. I'd ask a horse to go with me. So I have multiple choice on horses. I got three or four. So I may pick a particular horse I want to go with, and they're not having it. They're cold, they're cranky, they just don't feel like doing it. It's like, all right, well, I'll put them back, I'll get a different one. And then it meshes. Then we go
mhm.
use that. So we go do that with that particular horse. If you don't have the luxury of multiple choice horses, you can create a curiosity in the horse through these 5 questions. So I'll start asking through the process, I'll start asking my horse these questions, and then I'll put a saddle on, and then, or I'll bring a saddle out, and I may just have it there, but I'm still asking them questions, and then they like start sniffing my saddle pad because it was on the back of a different horse, and they love to do that stuff. And I change the thoughts and the emotions and the attitude and the action of the horse to come up to the level of curiosity, we'll call it. But then I'll pique their interest. Like,
Mm.
okay, yeah, I'm kind of warmed up now. I was cold. We've done 5-part series. You asked me to do some things, come to you. Maybe we went on a walk for like 20 minutes and I let them sniff this and sniff that. It depends on the horse, really, because they're all different. Some horses I used to play treasure hunt with to create a curiosity, where I'd take little feed treats and put them around the farm, and then I'd go on a walk and let them find it, discover it, and then they'd like, okay, I'm in, I want to do this, and then I'd get a
Mhm.
saddle on the back, and then I put some ground poles on the ground. I'm like, okay, now you can just I'll do some, we'll call it ground exercises, where I'm not on their back. I put poles for them to walk over, and it's like, well, okay, and they have to think about something. I change their thoughts and emotions, their attitude, their action, to come up to a curiosity and an interest of like, now what? Now what can we do? And then I'll go move the cows.
Perfect. Well, 'cause I have the luxury of having a few horses to ride and pick, and it's like, the one who's arguably my favorite is the one that is sort of, you know, she's the one pulling away from you or running you over, or we're really working on that, but it's a change, right? So it's change always takes time, especially when you've, committed to screwing it up in the first place. So
That's the way you learn.
yeah, the hard way. That's my learning style.
No, well, yeah, we joke about that, but I've seen from the outside since April tremendous change in your horses, and they're showing up and willingness to do their jobs, and you letting them have choices and listening to them. You've made tremendous change, Kate.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I can already tell, Kate, just by you asking this type of question, you're consciously aware, uh, above a lot of most people. They don't think this way. They don't think about the horse this way, and you're on such a good track, because whenever you can trade places with them and treat them as you'd want to be treated if the roles were reversed, because in essence that's what's happening.
Mhm.
You'll grow together further faster. And
Yeah.
there's mechanical things you can do to help a horse understand not to pull you around. That's
Uh-huh.
just a simple 3% of what we do is mechanical.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know if I have any video. I'll probably do in my membership group, which I'm getting ready to open that up,
Okay.
non-paid. So don't go on my website and pay for that, because I'm taking that off. It's just going to be open. I'm just going to share all those videos from 10 years ago. It's probably 500 videos in there,
Oh,
and
no.
I show how to soften the horse, because we want a soft horse. We practice softness, and then I just show how to do that.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Lots more to learn and practice. So it's not going to be boring.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Thanks, Kate. I think that's it. Well, thank you so much, Justin. I've really appreciated this and look forward to following more of you. And there'll be some students eager to look up your videos. Um, and I think it doesn't matter whether we ride them forwards, backwards, or sideways, or English, or Western, or behind them in a cart, as long as we do it with love.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Um, when I started to get into therapeutic horsemanship, um, when I put the horse first, well, it's kind of interesting. I put me first because I wanted to ascend, but I wanted the horse to help guide me to do it. But I realized, oh, I got to put the horse first, and then they see what I'm doing. In other words, I put myself first to present the best version of me to the horse. They see what I'm doing, which puts them first because they get a voice, and then it's reciprocal, it's synchronized, it's a harmony, agreement. And whenever that happens, it's right.
Yeah, more of that. Love it or change it or love it more. Get more of what you love.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for giving us so much to love today, and I'm really glad that you fit us in.
Yeah.
And I will send you copies of things and let you know when it's uploaded.
I'll share it with whoever I can. I'd love to do this again, Paige. I had a good time. Thank you. This is my favorite to talk about.
Well, and I think we could do this for days. I'm just
Yeah.
conscious of trying to keep this under, somebody who's driving somewhere and listening to our podcast or whatever. I think we could go on for days. There were so many tangents that I'd like to chase down, and I would love to have you back.
Well, we should do a 3 hour one because some people drive like 4 or 5 hour drives by themselves. I'm speaking from experience.
Ah,
And those long form podcasts are nice because you can really get some depth to things. And I kind of rushed over a lot of stuff. I felt like a river flowing over rocks.
me too. I
And
never
I'd
thought
like
of
to,
just letting it go that long. I was always conscious of trying to keep it shorter. Wow, permission to dive deep.
yeah, because like if you listen
Hmm.
to like the best podcasters, their long form is 3 hours,
Yeah,
and it's kind of you can just touch on a lot of things, but you can circle around the depth or circle around one and go deep on it. And I feel like we scratched on a lot of things, but we could dive so much deeper on some of those things. And long form podcast is pretty cool to do that.
thank you. That gives me
And
permission to do what I really wanted to do.
yeah, and you and I'm very thankful everyone showed up that did because we just decided this so quickly. Um, if we have more time to put it out there, that would be a good thing too. So I'm definitely willing to do this again when you're ready and see what happens.
Super. Well, I will follow up and I'm always ready. We'll look at your schedule and put it out to the world with a bit more notice so that people can show up and listen in at the time as well as later through the pre-recorded version. And I'll have an idea, and you will, of what we would like to dive deeper on, but we can let people also inform us of what they want to hear more of after they hear this one.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then I may reconsider saving the Q&As and podcast some of them or get them out there in some other forms too, because I was hearing gold when you were talking to Kate and she had a question, and I'll rethink things.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you and thank you everyone for showing up here to be thankful. And maybe I'll just ask for anyone before we go if they would like to share one thing. I'll start with you and put you on the spot, Justin. Since it's a day to be thankful for much of what we take for granted in life, I wonder if you can single out one thing that you're thankful or grateful for today.
Oh, wow. One thing.
Well, you can give a
I'll say this. I woke up this morning and I was thankful to be able to ground to the earth, harmonize with the earth, and experience the things that I get to experience and share with others. The love consciousness, ascension into a higher self-mastery consciousness is I'm so thankful to be able to do that. And I'm so thankful that I got to discover it through horses. We have such a blessing with horses. It's nothing that I take for granted these days. You know, I used to. I was just around horses, and it was a thing, and it was normal, and I did it all the time, and I took over 5,000 people trail riding in the mountains of Colorado in 9 years. But I'm very thankful right here, right now, of attracting the information that's coming in and being able to share it with others so that they could experience this life we all get to experience and learn what we're called here to earth to learn. Our souls are attracted to each other for purpose, and we came to earth for purpose. And to be able to fulfill that purpose, I want that for everyone. And that's what I'm thankful for, being a part of it.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. If anybody else wants to either unmute or type in something that they're grateful for, I see there's a new message here. Oh, Linda saying that she'll be there for our next recording. Well, I'm thankful for this work too. I think it's kind of crazy that I get up and to spend part of my day doing this is so ridiculously lucky. And I have a cup here that reminds myself that I am lucky. It's what it says on there. You can tell maybe that it was handmade by me. Looks like a 5-year-old made it, but it's me.
Do
It
you
says
know
that
what
I'm
luck
lucky.
is? Do you know what the luck is, Paige?
It's getting back what you're putting out, I think, and that
It,
when
it's
you buy
being
the time.
prepared. It's being prepared, and the opportunity, and they collide.
All right.
Isn't that cool?
Well, I will strive to keep my vibe high and be prepared for good opportunities then today.
That's why we're here right this second.
Super.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today and making the time, and I look forward to the next time around too.
Yeah, me too, Paige. Thank you.
Deep dives.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye.